See, I would visit and or migrate to all other countries over Vietnam, including Myanmar, despite the civil unrest, and the Middle East, countries, including Afghanistan and Cambodia. You know, even if I was I, e- even you know, even if I was kidnapped and forced to scam people for 16 hours a day, because obviously I'm genetically incompatible with Vietnam and cannot stand people in Vietnam's airport standing too close to me. You know, no personal space in their culture, and cockroaches crawling around, especially in the restaurants. I mean, especially in the restrooms, the bathrooms when you have to use the toilet or take a piss in Vietnam's airport. And and Vietnam has the most dangerous, chaotic driving I've ever seen of all my extensive research into all other countries, even over in Cairo, Egypt. And on top of that, Vietnam charges you a huge fine if you marry a Vietnamese woman for a 5-year visa and not have children, aka not appear to build a family. And for someone like me who prefers to never have children because of how terrible this world and earth keeps getting, definitely not a country or nation to go to, especially migrate to. Because what if you lose your English teaching, etc. job, and as a result, your 1 to 2 years temporary residence visa in Vietnam been revoked? And also, Vietnam reminds me, and the reason I put all this stuff here, I write this down, is because if I try to make a video, I forget what I'm going to talk about. So I just use the notepad on my phone and type in what I'm going to talk about. Yes, I end up remembering that I forgot some things to type in the notepad on my phone, but you got to do what you got to do to remember what I'm going to talk about when it comes to the video. And also, Vietnam reminds me mostly of Mexico, except the obvious, the CP. I don't want to get in trouble. Don't want to say nothing that'll get me in trouble with the algorithm. You already know. You can read it yourself. AKA, Vietnam's government rules everything. The difference between Mexico and Vietnam is Vietnam's government rules everything, including its Mexican cartel-like mafia gangs through controlled opposition. Basically, in Vietnam, if the criminal gangs in Vietnam, their criminal mafia gangs, don't do what the Vietnamese government wants them to do, then they take them down. That's the main difference. In Mexico, the Mexican cartel gangs rule over the government of Mexico. In Vietnam, it's the opposite. The Vietnamese government rules over their Mexican cartel-like gangs, Mexican cartel-like criminal gangs. And Vietnam's like the ones who rule over Vietnam, they use the motorbike, phone, etc. thieves as population control, and lets the thieves get away with what they're doing as long as they don't mess with the wrong people in Vietnam. Despite the best CCTV, etc. technology, that they use in Vietnam, very good, by the way. And all being well recorded, in Vietnam. And in Vietnam, you can be stoned to death, rocks thrown at you. In Vietnam, rocks can be thrown at you, and you can get thrust through, not stabbed to death over small traffic incidents. And you can end up, dead in Vietnam because life is considered quite not valued like in Mexico. In Vietnam, you can end up dead because you did not give someone a cigarette, and etc. And that I may have forgot that I need to talk about in this video about Vietnam. And also, there's no safe place in Vietnam, unlike in Mexico. And I apologize that I forgot to type that in on the notepad on the phone. There's no safe place in Vietnam, unlike in Mexico City. You know, even though the Mexican cartels have attacked the city of Mexico, as long as you're in the center of the city of Mexico and or the city of Mexico's beach near the water, you're pretty much safe from the Mexican cartels, because more than likely the Mexican cartels are not going to take a boat to attack uh, the part of the city of Mexico that's near water, that's near the beach. The only main appeal of Vietnam is the most feel-good hypnotic magic, especially in Saigon District 1 south of Vietnam compared to all other countries. You know, because Vietnam has the most feel-good hypnotic magic. On top of that, Vietnam has a lot of blackouts. You know, Vietnam has a blackout like every month, and you know, Vietnam is like the loudest and noisiest country in this entire world and earth. And now, one thing I will admit, you know, I was shocked. The music in Bangladesh, the city of Bangladesh, is considered the most loudest country in this entire world and earth. Their particular city. The only thing that makes it louder than Vietnam is the honky of horns. Vietnam's horns is not as loud as Bangladesh horns. Maybe Hanoi's horns. I don't know. And Vietnam is the most smoking and drinking type of culture. Of all other countries, Vietnam is the most into smoking and drinking. It's cheaper to buy yourself a beer in Vietnam than it is to buy water to drink. And yes, I do not smoke and drink, you know. I don't smoke and drink despite my looks. I have thought about smoking and drinking, and yes, I have asthma. Yeah, that's one of the main reasons I stay out of Vietnam, even though if I heard of other people have asthma that gone to Vietnam. I smell a bit of cigarette smoke, even though it's been years since I had asthma. I had an asthma attack, you know, so I have to, you know, that's why I stay away from smoking tobacco, because my asthma, weak ass lungs. My lungs are too weak and bitch made for Vietnam, you know. So, off topic, you know, I'm somewhat an antinalist, and ever since I was a kid, I was always been drawn to Japan and viewed it as my homeland. But as I gotten older and grew more Turkish in my looks, you know, I began to realize people judge me based on what I look like, not who I really am. You know, so as a result, Turkey is my true homeland, despite the huge overcrowded competition of other very Turkish looking guys and female refugees, etc., wanting to migrate to Turkey.